It's Real Fit Radio with B
and J.LOU.
If this is your first time listening, welcome. And if you're a returning listener, welcome back.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. If you don't like the road you're walking, start paving another one. That was Dolly Parton.
I don't know why when you said that, I was like, working 9 to 5. I just know that song. I don't even know if that's hers. I feel like that was Dolly Parton's song. Okay, good old Dolly. Yeah. Do something about it, huh?
Yep, you don't like it, change it.
Yeah. It sounds so easy, but it's really not. There are people all the time that complain about situations, but don't do anything to change them. They just keep on complaining.
Or you have those middle ground people who start with the change and then revert back outside of the anomalies, of course, the ones that create the change and continue to do it.
Yeah, they say repetition is the father of learning. So they've been doing it so long, it's a habit. They got to replace those bad habits with the good ones. And it requires a lot of discipline, commitment, and consistency. And that's hard. But if it was easy, everybody be doing it. Well, we're back and it's a Wednesday. It seems like Wednesdays are becoming a recording day now. So I'm with it. I cannot believe we're in February 2021. The time is flying. And yeah, it is February. And then it'll be March. It's just crazy.
Well, spoke to a gentleman the other day when I said it seemed like days are flying by no matter what you're doing. It used to be where people can go to work and it seemed like time slows down. In this day and age, time doesn't slow down even when you're doing something you don't like. And he said, oh, trust me, he said, the older you get, the faster it goes.
Well, I'm okay with that. I just want the quality of me aging to be really good. Like, I want to enjoy a nice glass of wine. I want to enjoy getting older. I don't have a fear of it. With all the stuff today and technology and plastic surgery and stuff, I mean, there are 65, 70-year-olds walking around looking just like 20-year-olds. I want to age gracefully, and I have some people that I have my eyes on where I'm like, wow, they look amazing. So great examples. Yeah, I want to get better with time. I don't mind the rush as long as it's quality, because we can't control it anyway.
If you really think about it, majority of the time that you're at a job or you're trying to get out of a job, you're constantly doing something to free up time. And that's what makes it seem like it's going so fast, because even if you're not at your gig, if you have one, you're doing something in your craft. So at some point you have to have a balance of having that, I gotta get it attitude to slowing down and enjoying the life. Because there was another quote I was looking at, and it was actually by Dr. Seuss. Said along the lines, you won't enjoy the moment until it becomes a memory. That was interesting too, because you're in the moment, but you really won't relish in it until it's gone. Almost like you won't miss me until I'm not here. That statement.
Or you don't miss having the luxury of doing something until you're unable to do it. We were talking about that the other day, Josiah and I were, because we had the mask on, and then we were saying how I saw a couple of celebrities saying that they actually really enjoyed this time. Not COVID, but just like they were able to go in places with this mask on. Everybody had them on. They didn't know who they were. And they said it was like kind of cool being able to move around like that and not be recognized. And Jay was saying that when that time comes, you still embrace it. You know, they're your fans. And he had his thought on it. Your fans are, you know, who allow you to do what you do, whether it's through music or through YouTube. And we were talking about that. I said, but yeah, there'll come a time when you miss having the freedom or the luxury of being able to go into the store and someone not recognizing you or bothering you or coming up and, you know, talking to you, and just like, I want my space. So he probably won't know.
No, you gotta experience it first.
Like,
you sent me a video of Beyonce on Instagram today about that when she was younger, saying she couldn't even take an emotion of somebody passing away because a fan came to her and started saying, oh my God, it's Beyonce. So she had to put on a fake smile, but she was tearing up inside because somebody that passed away. So she was like, I wish you can turn it on and off sometimes, but you can't.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nope. I think that happens. It's like, dang, I didn't even realize that was something I would miss until it was gone. So I totally agree with that. And I'm not rushing to experience that. I just try to enjoy the moment, to be present, and take in the things that we probably take for granted right now. You know, we don't even realize we're taking them for granted. I've been on my Twilight Zone. Not even a binge, but I'm just kind of going down a rabbit hole. I am a Twilight Zone fan. I've been watching Twilight Zone since I was probably about 10 years old. Thanksgiving I'd be at my grandmother's house, and Twilight Zone marathon would come on. I go in her room with my plate and just watch all the little short stories. I love it. And I've been looking at a couple of them. One of the ones I watched the other day, there was this guy, he had a nasty attitude, tycoon. He just said he was bored, and now that he's amassed everything, what else was there to do? And he struck a deal with the devil, and well, she didn't come to him as that, but he made this deal with this lady to go back and do it all over again, to amassed his wealth. And he was just saying how the fun is not in having it, it's in getting it. And so I started looking at that, and I started thinking about just how interesting it is that when you're working for something, the appreciation of it, some people say you appreciate it more if it's not just handed to you, and vice versa. Somebody says it doesn't matter, if I had it I would respect it and I'd know what to do with it even if it was given to me. I don't want to have to work for it. So interesting perspective. But I started looking at some other ones. I came across something that was really interesting. I've never experienced this before. It may have happened, but I didn't know. And there's a word for it. So I was looking at this short, and there was a difference that was made between these two girls. One was dark, one was light. And they started talking about colorism. I've never heard the word colorism put on it. I know that you can have a prejudice against you for being short or tall, being of a different ethnicity, gender, things like that. But colorism is not something I have knowingly experienced, but I thought it was really interesting because it was said to happen within your own race, and also experiencing it in different ethnicities. I think it's not just with darker skin blacks or lighter skin, but that can also happen in other races too. And I think we talked about it. I didn't know the word for it was colorism, when we were saying like someone, if you say somebody's Hispanic or they're Mexican, it's like, no, I'm El Salvadorian, I'm Cuban, like this, like specifics. So I just was like, I wasn't really familiar with the word, but the act itself, you know, I'm like, have I ever experienced that? So I started thinking about it, and I was like, have you ever experienced colorism before?
Who, me?
Yeah, like I haven't knowingly experienced it. I've seen in the world when people may tend to favor this person because she looks a certain way. That's what the depiction of beauty. But I didn't know that was colorism. It's like, this is what everyone says is pretty. If you look like this, those are just things. I didn't look at it that way. But within the race, I was like, oh, there's a word for that. Have you ever experienced that?
No, I've never experienced it personally, but I've seen it done.
Yeah.
I'm from the South, man. It's done all the time over down there. I've heard ignorant men say things like, I'll take an ugly light-skinned girl over an ugly dark-skinned girl any day of the week.
And like, that's within our race.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And I just looked at him like, you got to be a special type of stupid to say something like that. But yeah, it happened.
Wow.
I'm considered on a darker side, believe it or not, but I've never really had no issue where somebody was like coming at me sideways because of my pigment. Nah, not
your
inside
race.
of black. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I've seen it happen plenty of times.
And when I looked up the word, it was prejudice or discrimination against individuals with a dark skin tone, typically among people of the same ethnic or racial group. And so I was just like, I don't know specifically what they are, but I've seen Hispanics that are darker than both you and I. And I've seen Indians that are darker. You know what I mean? Within that race, they have lighter, Indians, darker. So I started really exploring it because I was like, wow, I didn't even know that existed in other races, where it's like it can be frowned upon if you're darker and she's lighter, or he's darker and lighter within that race. So I wonder if it just happens. I started going down the rabbit hole to women.
Yeah, I can remember speaking with an Asian person before, and they was telling me about it because it randomly came up conversation-wise about different ethnicities or whatnot, and they was like, oh yeah, it happens with us too. Like, if you notice, a lot of the people, or specifically the women, they try to be as pale as possible because that deemed them being in a higher class. If your skin is darker, that means you had an outside job.
Oh, wow.
And I think your mom said that too before, if I'm not mistaken.
But the word colorism. Like you hear about things. You know what I think of automatically? I know the word prejudice. I know if somebody's a racist. Oh, those are big words that stand out to me when you're dealing with different ethnic groups. But when you start going within the group, now I don't even know if it's a word for it, but I know you talked about this where it's like the guy that's taller. Then they say tall, dark, and handsome. There's no colorism there. They just give descriptions to that. The tall, dark, and handsome man as he strode into the room. You've heard this as descriptions in books. Someone might say it. That right there, there's no word for that. You just know like you're blatantly ostracizing a whole group of people based on what you feel is like unacceptable, or being short or tall, like clearly the tall people. I don't know how that is with women, like women wanting to be tall, or
women. I've never heard a woman wanting to be super tall. In fact, I've never heard them saying they want to be super short either. I just know I've never heard anybody saying, oh yeah, I just want to be a tall woman, because I don't know how the dating scene is for a woman that's walking around 6'4", 6'5". I guess in their mind, initially, they think they have to find a guy that's 6'4", 6'5" to match the intensity or whatnot, because they can't stand to see the sight of walking down the street with their mate, and if they're like my height or something like that and they look like kids to them, I don't know. It's interesting though.
Well, that to me, it wasn't shocking. I think that there was a word for it is what threw me. Because colorism, yeah, because I know in is it Japanese? If you know what it is, correct me, but I want to say I read years ago when I was in school about foot binding, where they would bind the feet. I want to say it's in the Japanese culture. So it was like good for a woman to have really small feet. So they bind them, but the way the feet were deformed and stuff, when they took the wrapping, that they couldn't even move their feet. It was just nice to look at. But I've heard men say they like small feet. No girl wants a size 12. So I think that there are things just based on the norms or what's largely accepted in society that you kind of just don't want to fall on that side. Like we said, height or having big feet. I'm kind of drawing a blank here, but I didn't think there was a word. I would think that the same thing when somebody's like, oh, if you're darker or lighter women are considered better looking, or if you have light eyes, like those are things you hear about within our race sometimes. Yeah. And I don't hear, but I didn't know there was a word for it. So that was interesting.
Well, yeah, for that, I think the other stuff pertaining to like, the height, the feet, those are all, in my opinion, preferences. But for as someone getting the nod over something based on the color of their skin, inside of black ethnicity, that would be considered colorism. Like I go back to that ignorant ass statement. A dark, ugly woman is not gonna get the time of day out. If I had to choose between a light and a dark skinned, ugly woman, I'm gonna choose the light one, because she already got her beat off the rip. But yeah, I've seen it.
I just double checked because I don't like to put something out there. It wasn't Japanese, it's Chinese. It said foot binding was a practice first carried out on young girls in Tang Dynasty, China, to restrict their normal growth and make their feet as small as possible, considered an attractive quality. The effects of the process were painful and permanent. Yeah, I'm glad I wasn't born there. That's cold. So I'm looking at these feet. You guys can't see these feet, but they can't walk and stuff the way their feet were bound. It looks horrible. Yeah, the things that are depiction of beauty. That's crazy. But yeah, that was one of the things. I always say this, you learn something new every day. There is a word for that specific thing, and I don't come across it a whole bunch. You and I, when we first met, remember I was just like, every time in this video, vixens and stuff, they always have to look a certain way. They need to make it to where it's a variety of different looking women, because all women don't look like this, and they're little girls that are watching, and they need to make sure that not that someone actually represents everybody, because you said earlier it's a preference. So you don't want to put somebody in a video and the artist is like, that's not even what I'm even like that. But I saw more than not the same type of girl in all these videos, and it's just like, dang. But I don't even know if that's colorism, if that's just like that's their depiction of beauty and they're just shoving it down your throats. So
but I mean, why wouldn't it be? Where did you get your depiction of beauty if that's crazy?
They're just showing Lou a quick picture of the foot binding, and it looks like they made him have cankles because they were so set on him having little bitty feet.
Yeah, she done went all the way back to that. She can't shake it. Yeah, I don't want to see no more.
You guys get a chance. It looks pretty bad, but look up foot binding in China. The way they bound the feet, your toes were pretty much tucked under the sole of your feet. And they started when they're young. You can't walk like this. It's like they pretty much took away all the toes. That's crazy. But you learn something new every day. That was my rabbit hole. My rabbit hole moment. Colorism. If you don't know, now you know. I didn't go too in depth. It's just something, again, these are open conversations that we have, and that was something I came across. And
I don't think you experienced it too much because you in LA. You see it more now, obviously, because of access to social media and music videos, television, et cetera, et cetera. It's just so many outlets now, but I don't think it was necessarily the same here as it was in Houston or Mississippi and Georgia, et cetera, et cetera.
It's more
so,
south.
Yeah, oh yeah. You can tell right off the bat that it was different.
Oh, okay.
For the darker complected girls as opposed to the lighter ones.
But did you know that that was the word for it?
Yeah, I've heard the word. I mean, I won't sit here and act like, oh yeah, I knew that. That's what the term was. But it's not like I haven't heard the word before.
Oh, cool. I did not.
Yeah,
I had no idea because there's so many things. Like I told you, tall, short.
You just jogged my memory about it. But I've heard that term before.
And then living in California, the depiction of your body being beautiful is constantly changing. I remember I looked at something, a video, I think it was All of Us, where the body was different. Now it's like your butt has to be a certain way. People are getting breast implants. And you and I have had that conversation because I'm like, when you get those breast implants, can they have the same weight as real breasts? Because you're getting them bigger, but it's not taking on the same weight
like
that a large breast actually have. So yeah, that's just crazy. On
top of that, the maintenance, and I look at it like a car. You know, at some point, it's not made from you. 2, it's gonna get old, and you're gonna get old. And if you want to keep that look up, and you didn't get it the natural way, you're gonna have to go under the knife. But what people don't understand is you're older now, so your recovery time and recovery is not the same as the 20-year-old girl. You're 35, so it takes a little bit more. It's gonna hurt a little bit more. Like, you ain't cut out for that. Literally.
Cut out. I like it. I feel like with that particular thing, you have to be, it's not even so much as like, you got to be so comfortable in your skin, because I think that there's some things that just genetically you have, you know what I mean? It's just your moms may have, it's just what you have, whether it's like, oh, I've got these dark splotches on my back. I'm just making up something because, I started watching Pimple Popper. I'm always finding something crazy to watch. Lou will sit up and be like, he'll say, dang, why you always finding something? But there are people that have these massive growths like in random places on their body, like on their backs. This lady had like a third breast almost. It was like this huge lump, and it was just different things. They couldn't help it. These are things that just happen. Like one lady, her pants leg was like, I think she was like a size 5, but the other size was like a 18. Her leg on one side was huge, and they said it was like fatty deposits. It just started happening to her. But they're just things sometimes that are out of your control. I think here, because they're constantly shoving down your throat what's the new Botox, the lashes, the permanent eyebrows, permanent lashes. Now it's not permanent lashes, it's the mink. It's just always something going on. And then they do this whole thing where nobody's wearing any clothes all the time, So Lou and I looked at a couple of, I pulled it up. It wasn't something he was looking at, but it was the people that were getting the Brazilian butt lifts. And one lady did a whole vlog of the whole procedure where she was, the pain and the stuff she was going through. I'm like, nah, I'm not doing it. I don't know what her butt looked like before, but she said she didn't have a butt. And I just feel like there's somebody that will like love it just like it is. There's somebody that loves large breasts, or somebody that likes small breasts, or somebody that likes short hair, long hair. You just got to figure it out and not try to put yourself in the box because you're restricted. And when people are like, this is what constitutes beauty right now in 2021. So now you're trying to fit in that box. But what about when it, like you said, when it changes? And I'm not even talking about just the surgery. What about when beauty changes some years from now? What if that's out? That trend's out. No more Botox. Big butts aren't in anymore. Take the implants out. Now, if you have freckles, I'm just making stuff up, but you can't keep changing like that. You got to rock what you have and figure out what you're comfortable with. You might have sexy shoulders. You might have really nice lips, a defined jawline. You just got to start picking at like what your highlights are. Get things that accent that too, because I find when you're in a specific place, and you were telling me that with Houston, because of the shapes there versus being in California, they don't cater to you having hips and thighs, being a bit more curvier. You're like, man, the girls at home, they wear stretch pants, stretch jeans. Here, they're 14 sometimes. It's like, this can't be a 14. This is straight up and down. What about if to get past the hips and stuff? This is not made for me. So those are things you have to take into account too. If they're pushing, because it all goes back to when this person looks a certain way, the surgeon gets paid, the Food and Drug Administration, everybody's in cahoots. The filters they keep putting up, and it's like, oh, everybody's using this filter and getting all these likes. And we've had videos on that. But once that happens, now you're trying to fit in their box again. It's not even made for you. So now you start altering stuff. So we jumped over to there from the colorism, but yeah, that was interesting. Don't try to fit in the box. Act like there wasn't a box. Do your own thing. There's somebody for you that'll love all of it. Barring, that you're, of course, being healthy, but somebody likes all that you got going on. You don't have to try to fit what everybody else, the masses are doing right now, because that right there has to be crazy, constantly changing.
Well, I do want to add a tidbit to that. There's this thing where I feel like at some point, it's not even about physical appearance anymore. I know it's hard to believe that men at some point grow out of your physical appearance, but we do. So while women sometimes take the initiative to do all this work to their body, at some point, the biggest trend that changed is the way men think. Yeah, we do grow up. Believe it or not. And at some point we'll look at what the inner beauty is, what you do for us, how you make us feel, this, that, and the other. That becomes significantly more important than the way you look. That's just the way it go. I mean, we're young, we are physically attracted to what we are physically attracted to, but at some point you get to a certain age, hell, both of us start looking a little different. So at the end of the day, you really want somebody that's there for you and not just because of certain things. Because if you think about it, even if a dude doesn't mature in that way, at some point, guess what he'll do? He'll end up finding somebody that looks significantly like you or even younger that had the same work done. So now you've got all that done to get whatever it is that you were doing. And I get it. Some of y'all are going to probably hit it in the comments. If you do listen to this podcast, you're going to be like, well, I did it for me. I did it for me. Well, I feel you on that. But at the same time, I like to think that you did it because of what notoriety it would bring for you and the type of guys, I guess, at the time that you're going for. But I'm just trying to save you some time and heartache and some pain, both physically and mentally, when I say that we all change, and that trend will change where the inner beauty will start to outshine the outer beauty in terms of what a man is looking for as he get older and he matures in his head.
And there's nothing wrong with, wanting to keep yourself up. I'm not against any of that. Just don't get caught up in that. I don't even want to say the rat race. It's just crazy. It's constantly changing. And sometimes I look and I'm like, that's what's happening now? I don't even want, like you said, the maintenance of that. No, sir, no, ma'am. One of the other things that I was thinking about, life lessons, pain and impatience. And I was thinking about that because I get impatient sometimes. I want immediate results. I think Kevin Hart said it. What was it? It wasn't true success. It was true something, but he was like, the person that defines this is one that gets up every day and does the same thing, not seeing a change at all. What was it? Gosh, I can't remember. We both were sitting there like, wow, I gotta pull that up. But I was rolling into that because sometimes you can't even see the behind the scenes. Not sometimes, most of the time. And you constantly at the plow. You're going to work, you're coming home, or you're doing the same things in hopes that the desired result is the outcome. But it sucks when you're in the process of it. It seems like nothing's happening. And if you take some of those shortcuts sometimes, pain and impatience can be those hard life lessons. Biblically, it says obedience is better than sacrifice. But even more so, I was equating that to that scripture. As much as I'm saying it's frustrating and it seems like nothing's happening, I don't want to learn through the teacher of pain and me being impatient. Those lessons are cold-blooded sometimes. It's just like I might not have had to experience this pain if I wasn't being impatient, but it's happened. And now because of that, I will never do that again. I'm going to go back to doing what I was doing, but it's like, why didn't I just stay and just kind of know and understand the process is not pretty, but it's necessary. And it's easier said than done. But I am constantly in a battle sometimes with myself where it's just like, these are one of my days where I'm feeling impatient, but I don't want to have one of those crazy lessons from me being impatient and have it be pain or one of life's crazy lessons that I don't have to go through or grow through if I just stay the course, you know?
I definitely believe that everybody goes through that situation where they feel impatient and trying to get something done immediately. But for the most part, I've never really seen anyone that became successful from trying to do, as they say now, a growth hack in order to skip certain stages because you're impatient. And that's pretty much in any facet of life. I mean, you can do it with relationships. Think about how many times you've seen someone try to jump in a relationship super fast. And I'm a huge advocate of being friends with someone first and leaving dating down the road, because I think you learn so much more about a person when you take your time, and there's certain things that won't be revealed to you if someone already knows that you like them and vice versa. So now you're putting your best foot forward, but you end up finding out a lot of bull crap later that you could have found out had you just been patient. And now you in it already, and then something happened, you're heartbroken or they're heartbroken or whatnot, and now you're having to do something different. Like, okay, well, this time I'm going to do it this way. And what ends up happening is you wasted time when you could have just been patient the first time around. Same thing with careers, whether it's entertainers, influencers, whatever you guys doing, even, selling products and merchandise or whatnot. If you try to find a way to skip that process of making sure that things are done right, if you get the numbers first or the people and the demand, and now all of a sudden you don't have the supply there, you kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place because you rushed the process without necessarily understanding what it takes to keep the demand high. So you end up losing out, and nobody wants to do that. So now you're back at square one, and you learn this lesson, and it's like, okay, now I'm going to do X, Y, Z. And it's like, well, if you would have done that the first time, you wouldn't have wasted time and had to learn this lesson that you could have learned just taking your time. I do try my best to live by this creed. Smart people learn from their mistakes. Wise people learn from other people's mistakes. Doing it that way, I think it saves you a lot of time and trouble going forward in, like I said, in different areas of life. It doesn't matter which one you choose. It's still the same outcome. Now, I'm not saying that someone out there, including B, being a trailblazer over here and being the first to do it. Now, that part, you can't escape from having mistakes being made, because being the first to do something and not having a blueprint or something to compare to, you are bound to make endless mistakes on that until you figure out the formula. But outside of that anomaly situation, there's nothing that you can't do in this world where you can't be patient and try to work the stuff out in a process way. I'm not saying that it can't be expedited at some point, but you definitely want to do that first before you start trying to find some growth hack. And that's the problem with the world today. Everybody wants things immediately, and include myself in certain instances, and we end up paying for it on the back end with our time, maybe our money, whatever, but nobody wants to continue to do that. So I definitely urge anybody that moves around with impatience to just slow down. It ain't going nowhere, because it'll pay off in the long run, because whatever it is that you're being impatient about, chances are, if you take your time and learn, and I don't necessarily mean moving slow. Don't get it confused by taking your time meaning moving slow. It just means you might need to educate yourself more, or you might need to be around a person a little bit more, listen, learn that, and then take that knowledge and then implement it. And that way you won't make some of the bonehead mistakes you would have made if you just would have jumped the gun. So overall, like I said, I think everybody deals with it You just have to find some discipline in holding yourself steady for what you ask for.
All right. I don't like for pain to be the teacher of the lesson, but life has a series of lessons we're always learning, big, small, all of it. I think even in small things that are happening, there's always a teachable moment in something, or even stuff you already know that you don't do. It's like, dang, I should have done that. It's lessons happening all the time. My goal is to avoid the pain and impatience being the teacher sometimes. I know I'm still going to learn. I just don't want to have those hard lessons. Fast or slow, long term, short term, whatever it is, time reveals all. So you what they say, live a little longer. Dealing with a person, when you're dealing with stocks, when you're dealing with jobs, you be around somebody long enough, you go to a place long enough. Even businesses, you ever go somewhere for a period of time and it's like, ooh, the service sure has changed. Or I remember when they used to do this, or they've gotten better, or they may have gotten worse, or you see the change of employees. Just time reveals a lot. So I implore you, don't be impatient and try to avoid the painful lessons if possible. Some stuff you go through it and it hurts. But if you being impatient, slow down. Slow down. You don't want that to happen to you if it's something that you don't necessarily have to experience to actually have a lesson there.
Yeah, you crazy saying you say you don't want to experience no pain, but I understand exactly what you meant by it. I mean, honestly, nobody wants to necessarily go through the process because it's gruesome. No matter what it is that you're trying to accomplish, it's a gruesome process, especially if it's something worth having. You can try to minimalize it, but you won't be able to avoid not feeling anything. At the end of the day, I mean, would you rather go through the process and feel the pain of learning, setbacks, mistakes that you have no control over, things like that, and working really hard and learning whatever it is you need to learn about what you're doing or who you're talking to, only to have a successful, y'all know I like sports, championship later, and it's like, oh, how did you do it? What did you get here? All you hear is, man, it was an incredible process. We had some ups and downs and we worked hard and the effort was always there, etc., etc. So it's kind of the same speech you hear from these athletes and stuff like that, or even somebody who won an award musically. They always say the 10,000 hours that they put in, or the misunderstandings they had with the producer, etc., etc. So it's always something that you are going to face during the process of whatever it is you're asking for. It's just that you don't want to add more issues than you already have to deal with through being impatient and trying to, like I said, jump the gun or find some growth hack. It's just not going to happen. And most times it comes out in a wash if you skip a step, because the very step that you end up skipping is the one that sets you back or causes you to lose money and or time, or both.
Oh yeah, it all comes out in the wash. Well, hopefully, to our listeners, if you didn't know about colorism, I didn't know about it. Maybe I was the only one, but I don't think so. Somebody else didn't know. So there it is. And you can kind of look into it some more. Now you have a name to something that maybe you experienced, or you're like, oh, that's what's going on. But as always, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, you want to keep this conversation going, you have any suggested topics, don't be afraid. Shoot us an email at realfitradio@gmail.com. Our podcast drops every Monday. You can catch the latest snippet of our most recent podcast on our Instagram at realfitradio. If you're not following us, you definitely should be. As always, we hope this inspired, impacted, or empowered someone. Until next time.